Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we're going back to our roots. But before I get into that, there's something I've got to explain first. So, I don't know if anyone has noticed, but I haven't said the word battle report. Well, come to my knowledge and one of my YouTube friends, Freelance, we've actually come to determine that it's actually because of the new YouTube algorithm. Yes, if you say any swear words or anything related to violence within the first 8 seconds, basically your videos are pretty much ghosted. And I don't want that happening to the channel. I hope that some of you don't want that to happen to the channel. And I'm sure anyone who's starting up a YouTube channel doesn't want that happening to theirs either. So I've kind of got to format these a little bit differently. So yeah, that's basically it. But I've also got a little bit of change that I want to show you guys as well before we get into it. All right, up first is the layout of the room. As you remember, it was pretty much like 3 tables a row, but now I've kind of cleaned it up a bit in here. Somewhat, it's still a work in progress to where I have 2 of the tables that I've actually got all the terrain and stuff like that put out for you guys to see, so where it's a little bit better. And I've put the table over here for setup of the armies. And then there's one last thing. The other is I now have a paint station. And yeah, so now I can actually work on my armies and all that. I thought it was really cool. I thought I'd share with you guys. And I've also gotten these little lights. They're actually pretty cool. And they show like a lot of detail. I actually just painted up this guy the other day. He's from the Acadian Stand box set. I've never been a big fan of painting, but I've actually used something that I plan on reviewing in the near future. I'm not going to give it away, but if you can kind of guess where this comes from, then you already know what it's about. But yeah, I just thought I'd give you guys the layout on this. So now let's go ahead and go to the main part of the video. All right, so in this custom narrative mission, it's going to be the Astra Militarum versus the Raven Guard. So the objective for the Astra Militarum, who will be deployed in this section right here, is to make it to the Valkyrie with all of their units, or as many units as they can, by the end of the game, as they have already conquered this world and brought it into the fold of the Imperium. So now they are loading up and moving on to the next world. Meanwhile, the Raven Guard, who will be deployed over in this corner right here, are trying to prevent the guard from leaving. The reason being is that they have found a traitor amongst their ranks, and they are trying to purge them from the Imperial Guard before they go on to the next world infected with chaos. However, the Imperial Guard are refusing to give up said soldier. It is unknown whether it is the company commander leading this force or if it's just a lonely guardsman. So for the Raven Guard, they must stop the Imperial troopers from leaving. Winning conditions, more than 50%, for the Imperial Guard to win, more than 50% of their forces must evacuate the Valkyrie, or through the Valkyrie, by the end of the game. For Raven Guard to win, they must destroy 50% or more of the Imperial Guard forces for it to count as a win for them. Now, for the guard to be quote-unquote extracted, they must be within 3 inches of the tech priest right here. Neither guard nor the Raven Guard are able to destroy the tech priest or the Valkyrie. The only way for them to win is either to get more of the forces out of the battlefield or for the Raven Guard to destroy more of the forces on the battlefield. The way it'll work is that once they are within 3 inches of the tech priest, they must wait a whole turn to be counted as extracted. Now, while they are being extracted, they can shoot, however, they cannot move. So they are pretty much stuck for a whole turn, allowing the Raven Guard to the ability to make it easier for them to charge or to just pin them down through lines of fire. So that breaks down the mission. Let's go ahead and get on to the armies. Alrighty then, so the first up, we have forces of the Astra Militarum. The company commander right here is a Acadian Castellan. He has the Warlord trait Grand Strategist. So on a 5 up, every time a CP is spent, on a 5 or more, he gets that CP back. He also has the Relic Claws of the Desert Tiger, which is basically a big buff chainsword, will give him +2 strength. -3 AP and a flat 2 damage, and it'll also give him an additional 2 attacks. We are then followed by troop choices of 2 standard infantry squads with a plasma gun and a voxcaster in each squad. Sergeants just have a standard las pistol and chainsword. For elites, we have a squad of Kasserkin, where the sergeant has a plasma pistol and a plasma pistol and a power sword. For transports, we have 2 standard chimeras, nothing special about them. And then up next, we have the Wyvern. Now, for the Kasserkins, I have spent a CP on Battlefield Request, where the sergeant has the Barbarant's Key, where basically once per game, they can teleport anywhere on the map. And the Imperial Guard is going to be starting off with 5 CP. So now, let's go ahead and move on to the Raven Guard. Alrighty then. So this is the Raven Guard detachment. It is 520 points. The Warlord is this Phobos Librarian. I went ahead and spent the extra points to make him a Chief Librarian. His 3 powers are the Abyss, where basically he'll roll 3d6, and for each one that is a 4 up, the unit it is attacking will suffer 1 mortal wound and a -1 to the leadership. Spectral Blade, which basically will buff up his power sword, and if their leadership is less than the leadership of the librarian, it is a -4 AP. And Umbral Form, which will grant him an invulnerable save. His relic is the Armor of Shadows, where basically hit rolls of 1, 2, and 3 will always fail. And also his Warlord trait is Feigned Flight, where basically he can fall back in charge and treat terrain as if it's not there. For troop choices, we have a standard squad of Intercessors. For heavy support, a standard squad of Hellblasters. And for fast attack, a standard squad of Inceptors with the heavy bolters. So yeah, let's go ahead and now move on to the deployment. All right, so we got ahead and got the armies all set up. The Kasserkin are right here hiding behind the building. In this Chimera, we had the company commander and 1 squad of infantry. And the next Chimera is just another squad of infantry. Got the Wyvern here in the back corner. This dice is just going to represent their CP. Over here for the Raven Guard, they are starting off with their 6 CP right here. We've got the Hellblasters just barely touching the base right here of the building. Got the Phobos Librarian right here. And then we have the squad of Intercessors over here touching the base of this terrain right here. And their Inceptors are in Deep Strike. So I went ahead and did the roll-off. It's going to be Guard, turn 1. Alrighty then, so it was turn 1 for the Guard. They didn't do too bad. The Chimera over here pushed forward over in this direction. Chimera or Wyvern just pretty much slid over in this direction. Chimera right here pushed forward over here, but not before giving the Kasserkins the take cover order. They did advance, so they weren't able to shoot. Basically, for the shooting, they didn't do too bad. The Chimera put everything into that squad of Intercessors over there, doing nothing to them. The Wyvern fired all of its shots in that squad over there, and was able to kill off 1 Marine. And then the Heavy Bolter from this Chimera over here was able to put all of its shots, including its multi-laser over here. The multi-laser did nothing, but the Heavy Bolter then took off 2 Marines. So, yeah, that was it for Guard turn 1. So now let's go ahead and turn on to the Raven Guard turn 1. Alrighty then. So now we went ahead and moved on to Raven Guard turn 1. Not too much happened, but some stuff did remain destroyed. So the Intercessors pretty much advanced up from this little barricade over to here. The Hellblasters pretty much moved around into this corner right here. The Psyker pretty much advanced, got a 10 on his advance and moved over here. The 2 powers he casted are Umbral Form on himself, so he has a 4-up invuln. And he casted Smite on the Chimera, got a Super Smite, and dealt 4 wounds to it. The Hellblasters lit him up. They were in rapid fire, and I decided to overcharge them. Thankfully, only one of them died, but it was just enough to bring the Chimera destroyed. When all was said and done on the explosion, only 2 guardsmen died. So, yeah. Now let's go ahead and move on to guard, turn 2. Alrighty then, so it was turn 2 for the guard. This squad moved up over here. Khazarkins kind of fell back more into the walls right over here. Wyvern moved up a little bit, and the Chimera did a pivot and turned forward over there. Chimera blasted into the Hellblasters and took out 2 of them with the heavy bolters. And the guardsman squad, with the ability of take aim given to them by the Acadian Castellan, were able to wound a Hellblaster. And the Khazarkins were just pretty much given the take cover ability. So yeah, now we're going to move on to Raven Guard, turn 2. All right, so it was some pretty big plays done by the Raven Guard. First thing, the Psyker casted Umbral Form on himself, giving him a 4-up, and Smite on the guardsman over here. Took out 3 of the guys. The intercessors fired all 4 of their shots into the guardsman here, killing 4 more, leaving 1 guy left. They were going to charge him, but they failed to charge. However, he did fail his morale phase, so he's gone. The Hellblasters fired into the Chimera over here, dealing no wounds. And then the Phobos Librarian, who ended his movement right over here, needed a 9 to get into the company commander right here. He got it on a 9. I did spend a CP for the ability for him to re-roll the charges if he was the only selected target, which he was. He failed the first charge. He actually got double 1s. And then he charged again, and he got exactly a 9. So he made it in there, got 3 of his attacks through. He actually, just funny enough, he was hitting on 2s and wounding on 2s, but he was only able to get 3 of his attacks through. And the company commander failed all 3 of them. And I rolled, for the first one, it was a flat 3, so regardless, if I rolled the other 2, he just died on impact. So, and now the Phobos Librarian has consolidated, now touching the Khazarkins. So now we're going to move on to guard, turn 3. Alrighty then, so it was turn 3 for the guard. Nothing too crazy happened, actually. These guardsmen piled out of the Chimera and moved forward towards the Tech Priest. Funny enough, they are within the 3 inches, so they can start their extraction. The Khazarkins, as you can see, have moved away from the Librarian. They did their movement, then they used their Barbaran's Key to fling themselves away. However, since they were being touched by the Librarian, they were not able to shoot this round, so they just pretty much have the intercessors locked in their eyes, ready for the next round. The Chimera pretty much lit up and blew into the Hellblasters, taking them off the game, and the Wyvern put all of its shots into the Librarian, dealing no wounds. So let's go ahead and move on to Raven Guard, turn 3. All right, another successful turn for the Raven Guard. So the Inceptors dropped down because they were just within the 9 inches point beyond these guardsmen, put their full blast onto them and just wiping them all out. The Librarian moved forward, and I was able to get Spectral Blade off on him, and but I was not able to get Umbral Form on him. So while he does have his blade up, he does not have the 4-up invuln. And despite the fact that he was a buffed up stick, he was only able to deal 1 wound. He failed 3 of the attacks, 3 out of the 5 attacks he did on the Wyvern, and then he was only able to wound it once. And on that wound, he only got a 1d3 out of the amount of wounds he could do. So yeah, Intercessors were going to originally charge these guard, but since they got wiped off by the Inceptors, there was no point of doing it. So now we're going to move on to guard, turn 4. All right, not too bad for the guardsmen. The Wyvern pulled away from the librarian and moved over towards the tech priest, beginning its extraction. The Chimera blew the 2 intercessors, or attempted to blow the 2 intercessors, failed to do so. However, a couple of the Kazakin were able to see one of them and were able to blow them away. So the Chimera is able to start its extraction. And now all we're waiting on is the Kazakin getting over there for their extraction. All that's left for the Raven Guard is just their librarian and their intercessors now. So let's go ahead and move to them for turn 4. Alrighty then, another brutal turn played by the Raven Guard. The Inceptors pretty much moved forward and shot all of their shots into the Kazakin, killing off 5 of them. The Phobos Librarian more than made up for his last turn against the Wyvern. He casted Smite upon him, and although he did fail the first time, he was able to get it the second time, but was only able to deal 1 wound off of it. And then he fired up his Spectral Blade, which he got off, and basically got all of his attacks through and all of his wounds through, basically negating any save that the Wyvern hoped to have, and pretty much blew him out of the water. It did not blow up. However, he was able to then consolidate over to the Chimera. Now, if you're curious as to why he was over here and the barrels were right there, so how could he move through it? Remember, his Warlord trait allows him to move through terrain. And on his charge, he got a 7. So he was just barely enough to get through the barrels and in front of the Chimera. So let's go ahead and go to the last turn for guard. Alrighty then, so a lot happened in this turn, so I'm going to go through this as best as I can. As far as movement goes, Chimera stayed still. The Kazakins moved up their 6 inches. For the shooting part of the phase, I pretty much buffed the Kazakins as best as I could. I gave them Experience I, which gave their armor AP increased by 1. Ingrained Precision, where basically if they had the Born Again Soldier's Doctrine, which they do, 5s now automatically wound, and 5s and 6s automatically count as an unmodified wound roll of a 6. And Overcharged Lad Cells, where basically unmodified wound rolls of 6s count as give them a mortal wound, give them an automatic mortal wound. They fired all their shots into the Inceptors, and even after I gave them Transhuman Physiology, what actually did it was the mortal wounds. So yeah. I also spent a CP, before that, the Chimera fired all its shots into the Psyker, and was able to do 2 wounds off of it. However, in the combat phase, even though I spent a CP for Crush Them, where 6s, where it increased its weapon skill by a 3, or to a 3 plus, it still was not able to deal any wounds off to the Psyker. However, the Psyker was able to hit it with the Spectral Blade and brought it down to 6 wounds. So let's go ahead and finish up with the Raven card, turn 5. And what a way to go, ladies and gentlemen. I tell you what, this librarian really meant business. So, for powers that he absorbed, he casted Smite on the Chimera, got a Super Smite, dealt 5 mortal wounds, casted the Abyss. Basically, he rolls 3 dice. Any that are 4 up does 1 mortal wound. He got a 5 and a 6. Obviously, it was just enough to make the Chimera go bye-bye. It did not blow up. He then fired his bolt pistol into the Kazakin, killing off one of them, made the charge, got just enough attacks in, and was able to wound all remaining 4. And thus ends the battle. I have to say it is an overwhelming Raven Guard victory. Not a single guard unit was able to extract out from the Valkyrie. So let's go ahead and get into the after action report. All right, so here we are for the after action report. And I have to say, I was not expecting the Raven Guard to just come in and just sweep house. In the beginning, it actually looked like the Guard was actually going to get away with a nice clean victory, but I have to say overall, the MVP out of this game was the Chief Librarian. Um, Actually, I had never given this guy a name before. I got him through an eBay auction, and he just looks so cool. He's got his nice little cloak and dagger. He's got a nice purple sword with him, and he's got a nice little suppressor pistol with his book on the back of him. So if you guys actually have any ideas what to give him, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd be more too happy to look at them and see if I like them. I know that there's a Raven Guard name generator in the book, so I might give him a name through that as well. And then I might put it to a poll test on how you guys like the name. But yeah, I think we should give this guy a name. But overall, it was a fun battle report. It was a nice spin. Instead of like command post, the guard actually had to go and try and extract. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like, comment and subscribe. It really helps a small channel like with me. And like I said, the algorithm is not doing so hot lately. So every like, every view, every subscription, it really helps me push through there. And like I said, I've just changed the setup of the wargaming room, and I've got my own paint station. I actually got one of those ring lights. I actually have 4 of them now. So I'm hopefully going to be able to do some live streams with them and maybe do some painting stuff with them as well in the future. I keep saying to do live streams, but I'm hoping now with the better lighting, it should become manageable. But yeah, that is it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the battle report. If you didn't like it, feel free to explain why you didn't. Apologize. It took only over a week. I know the algorithm was kind of in effect, so my views have kind of dipped. So I've kind of had to reevaluate how I do videos. But yeah, on a lighter note, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.